Hello, everyone, and welcome to the OnlyLandFans show. My name is Kendall Lejeune, and our guest today is Al Nicoletti. Al Nicoletti is a Florida probate attorney extraordinaire. Al has carved out a unique niche in solving simple and complex probate matters that once stalled real estate deals. He developed a strategy to structure probate so they are fast, efficient, and done right. Al's law practice is strongly focused on probate, quiet title, partition, trust administration, mortgage foreclosure defense, and real estate litigation. He has a no nonsense approach and is dedicated to positive quality results. The law offices of Al Nicoletti clients include real estate developers, investors, agents and brokers, estate executors, heirs, and more. In addition to managing his law practice, Al hosts a live weekly podcast, is an educational speaker, and content creator. Al enjoys traveling nationwide to speak at real estate investor association meetings, boot camps, and masterminds to educate audiences on the potential of probate real estate. Al, thanks so much for joining us. How are you today?
Kendall, I'm doing awesome. Thanks so much for that introduction. And I am so excited to be on OnlyLandFans. From the minute I woke up today, I was screaming, I'm going to be on OnlyLandFans with Kendall and the whole crew. So I'm excited to be here. Thanks again for having me.
Al, thanks so much for joining us. I've wanted to have you on the show for quite some time. Finally, we got our calendar synced, and it is Al Nicoletti Day on OnlyLandFans. I am so stoked. And we're talking about a very specific niche, a very specific topic that you are the master of, and that is probate. And so, can you just start us off by briefly describing your journey into specializing in probate real estate deals?
Yeah, Kendall's crazy backstory. I never imagined myself in probate when I was in school, right? When I was in school, I was actually in music. Law wasn't even in sight. Played violin for 15 years. I didn't know where that was going to go. So jumped into law, went to law school. I didn't really see what was going to take off in law school at the time, didn't really find that niche. And really, it's when I jumped out of law school and got my first job as a lawyer that I worked in a real estate law firm, and they were handling a lot of foreclosures, a lot of foreclosure defense, dabbling in some probate here and there. And so when I was there, I really got to see some of the messy title situations, right? What was going on the closing side, how to resolve some things. It really wasn't until my best friend from law school, he comes down, he explains this whole thing on probate, and I was like, wait, I thought I knew probate before and was dabbling it. And then I hear about this whole other side with real estate and like the big picture to it. So got my feet wet in that and really did some study, did my research, really dove in on that. Took about a year and a half before it really had some wheels. And once I saw it, it clicked. And I found this whole niche with getting into it, with structuring it and being able to explain what it is and educate and speak on it. And so fast forward 4 or 5 years later, it really took off and then opened up my own practice. That whole journey there was just this eye opener of there is an untapped market that a lot of people have heard of, but are not really focused on, or they don't feel confident in getting into it, or they hear that the probate word, but they're like, I don't get it. So, and it really confuses people, but it isn't, right? And that's the idea is I have come in and really shown a lot of the real estate industry, hey, this niche is possible. You can do it.
I love that. Obviously, so many things I connect with in that story, particularly the music. I have a music background. We've talked about that before, but very cool. For those unfamiliar, can you explain what probate real estate involves, especially when it comes to land deals in that specific use case?
Yeah, so really, let's start with big picture about probate, right? What it is and identifying it. So we come across a probate when there's a piece of property that's titled in the name of a deceased person, or maybe there's multiple owners and somebody's deceased, or maybe multiple are deceased. The operative thing is that somebody's on the title to that property. So the root issue is somebody's deceased. Now, to get it out of their name, That's where we're trying to go through this whole probate process to gather all the documents, file it in court, and get the right orders so that title insurance now has the green light to close. When it comes to land, what we're seeing with probate is a lot of these land deals, the people own these properties generations ago. We're not talking about they bought the house 2 years ago, right? That's all the houses. With land, they bought this in the 70s. They bought this in the 80s, and they bought it thinking, oh, maybe one day I'll build a house on it or keep it for my kids. And all of a sudden they die and the land's just sitting there. And what we're seeing is so many people, like the heirs, they'll keep that property, they'll pay the taxes to hold on to that property. So eventually, investors are doing their mailers, doing their cold call, and they reach these heirs. And it's like the market's hot in this one area, and they find out, hey, you got to go through probate on this. And they never knew it before. So we're seeing a lot of these deals, especially in the Florida area. There's certain areas that we're seeing that are really hot. We're seeing a lot of areas where the land deals are generations ago, and we're having to not just do one probate, Kendall. We're having to do multiple probates because of how long it's been. That's what a lot of people don't realize. The longer you sit on that property, then the longer it goes, the more probates are involved. And of course, you got to run your numbers. And we can dive in on this. I'll let you host it from here, but I'll tell you this, Kendall. The one thing a lot of investors don't realize about land deals and probate is really running your numbers once you know what the probate is and what's involved. Because if you think that you're going to buy it for 5,000 and assign it for 12, and then you find out that there's two probates, there's no money in the deal. So when you get these, you really have to crunch those numbers. And I tell people, it's not always about probate. It's about all these other things with the land that can come in and crush the deal on top of probate as well.
Really fascinating. So you said earlier, untapped market, and my ears just perked up, right? I'm sure most real estate investors, most entrepreneurs, when they hear untapped market, your ears perk up. So can you talk a little bit about, just give us an overview of how land investors can leverage probate to build their investment portfolios?
Definitely, my first thing that comes to my mind is finding the hot leads. So what I've seen is a lot of these land deals that people have held on to for a while. The way to really focus on it is anytime you hear probate, you're thinking distressed. So it's not going to the property appraiser or the lead, it's not going to blink probate, right? But what it's going to blink is distress signals. So back taxes, delinquent taxes, it's heading to a tax deed auction, code violations, nuisance liens, any type of indicator for distress is probate. So with land specifically, some of the hottest areas we've seen is where the property is going to a tax deed auction in a month or 2 months. And why that is so big is because there's just so much motivation behind it. The tax deed auction isn't going to get canceled unless the taxes are paid off. So everybody's in a scramble to figure out, do we try to buy this property and close on the property before? Or is it just going to get lost? So there's a lot of motivation with that. And delinquent taxes is a really hot market, hot lead source for probate land deals. We see code violations as well. There's some people out there that really target code violations and find land. Or maybe what they're doing is really combing through the records and seeing maybe if the title to the property changed because the county updated the property appraiser and they're actually letting that this has some kind of estate or property issue that needs probate. A lot of people don't realize that the counties will have the records, right? So in Florida, and not talking about other states, but Florida, all the records are there. The records are there, public records. You can go down to the courthouse. You can pull things online. That's what's so great about a lot of these counties, Kendall, is the big cities. A lot of this stuff is online. Maybe the smaller counties, you have to get a runner to go in. But if you are an investor looking to build your portfolio, these are the hottest leads we're seeing. Whether you're wholesaling, whether you're going to do a buy and hold, and then you're going to develop and build and maybe then flip it out afterwards. Either way, these land deals are crazy. Kendall, we saw this one deal. So I want to talk about a case study of why it's so good to get into this niche. I talk about this at presentations. There was this investor. She found a property around Christmas time 2 years ago, and they went under contract with the sellers at the time. And then they went through, title comes back, title commitment says, hey, you need 3 probates done for this one property. The investor never heard about probate, but was freaking out because they thought they were going to get a smoking deal. They were snatching it up, I think, for 80,000. Big land. They're snatching it up for 80,000 and assigning it for $100,000 out. $100,000 assignment fee. So they were craving this deal, but they
Yeah.
didn't know what to do with probate. So I talked to them. We broke the whole thing down, and when I broke it down, we realized one probate had one heir, another had one heir, and then the other had 3 heirs. The good part is that it was solvable, it was easy, there was everybody. The challenge was you getting everybody on contract. And so they had to work on that for about a month because as soon as everybody found out there was a deal and there was money, everybody went crazy. That's what really happens with some probates. That's the dark side of that, right? It's a great niche. And then you find out you got to get everybody, but that's the real side of this. She did. She got everybody under contract. We did all 3 probates, got them done in probably 6 weeks, and title closed. And so that one deal changed her whole business. From there, I think she was able to get some VAs and assistants and scale the business. You never know when taking on that challenge if that's going to actually help scale your business, and of course you could invest that money in other properties. So that is the huge upside when you're getting into these probate deals.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. Such a cool case study. I know I've heard it said many times that like where there's chaos in the market, there's opportunity, right? And so whenever things get a little bit sticky, a little bit hairy, like that's where some opportunity lies. And that's what kind of stuck out to me in that case study. If I could ask a follow-up question to that, when she was getting each of these heirs under contract, what did that look like? Did she pay them a certain amount to get each person under contract, or was it all handled at closing? What did that look like since there were multiple probates involved?
I don't know the inner workings of how she structured it. I believe the way it went was once it was discovered that there were multiple heirs, they all wanted to know what each of their interests were because it wasn't going to be equal, right? One was going to get a third, another was going to get a third, and then it was like a third split 3 ways again. So they just all wanted to know what their shares were because that happens a lot, Kendall. An investor will go under contract on a real estate deal with one seller and they think that, oh, I'm going to make a windfall of $50,000. Then they get the probate consult and then they find out the real rub that there's 7 kids and they're no longer getting $50,000. So really, it's just a matter of them coming to the table and the realization that this is not going to go what happened before. This is going to go a little bit differently than we discussed. And they got it. They understood. There was I think some family stuff that went on. There usually is, but I think overall they realized the big picture and it was if they don't move forward with it, they don't make any money. And so they came to the table and did it. And it was a crazy deal. I never realized that there were some of these big land deals at the time. I couldn't believe that people were making $100,000 like that.
That's incredible. I love that. I love that. So, if someone's listening to this and they've heard probate, they've heard the term before, and now they understand it a little bit better, and they say, you know what, I'd like to go after these probate deals. Are there probate lists that people can go after, or do they have to go after ancillary lists like you just mentioned in terms of tax delinquents or things like that?
Yeah, there's service providers out there, right? So you have foreclosuresdaily.com. They're a great service provider. They provide pre-foreclosure, pre-probate, code violation. There's so many. And so what's great, there's It's actually, if you want to break this down, there's paid services versus free services, right? So we'll do the paid services like foreclosures daily. They do a lot of this kind of stuff. And then you have people like All the Leads, right? Another company that has paid leads. The idea is that when you do paid services, you're taking a lot of the legwork out for yourself to be able to do what you do best, not have to scrape through the data and stuff like that. Like you could take that data, give it to the VA, let the VA now cross-reference and see and run comps and see what are legitimate, and maybe some are upside down, some are not. So there are paid services. The flip side on the free services is there are some things that service providers don't have, right? So the tax auction ones, the foreclosure auction ones, maybe just the regular tax delinquent ones. There's just going to be certain types of lists that not everybody can put together for data. Maybe over time they will, but that's where the gold is really, right? The gold is finding where your best use of your time is and what you're willing to shell out to get those data points, get those leads lists, but also to find out where the ones that a lot of people don't have or aren't going after. Go where there's less competition, right? If you go where there's less competition, that's going to be big. That's why a lot of people are big on the pre-probate leads, because the probate hasn't started yet. So the difference, so Kendall, you'll love this. The difference between probate leads and pre-probate leads is probate leads are filed in court already. They become public record. What does that mean? The world's going after them, right? Everybody's on notice of it, right? So as soon as a probate's filed, all of a sudden, a lot of investors do mailers, cold call, and the airs just get barraged with tons of letters and stuff. On the pre-probate, a lot of those haven't gone through probate yet. So they're not public record. There's less competition. There's less people reaching out. It becomes more of a conversation of, wait, how did you get my contact? This is the first time I'm hearing about this. And where a lot of people are blown away are the pre-probate leads, where they're not fresh leads that just happen. They're the ones that have been sitting around 5, 10, 15 years, paying taxes all this time, but the property's still titled in the deceased. And then you're reaching out and they're like, how did you find me in Oregon when the land's in Lehigh Acres? And it's like, it's amazing because it's the competition pool so small. And that's where that gold is. That's why those leads I was talking about have been the hottest leads I've seen last year and this year.
That is incredible. So much gold in that. Finding a honey hole where no one else is looking, that's where big opportunities can come. I love that. So, if someone's listening to this and they say, okay, I have my mind set on this probate thing, what is the overview of a probate real estate deal look like? What does the process look like from a 30,000 foot view? Hey, land fans, looking for your tribe of serious land investors? Join thousands of your fellow land lovers in the Only Land Fans Facebook group. We're talking real deals, expert strategies, and game-changing connections you won't find anywhere else. This isn't just another real estate group. This is the community where land investors come to level up. Join us at OnlyLandFansGroup.com and join the conversation today. That's OnlyLandFansGroup.com. See you there.
Yeah, first thing is let's just say you go under contract with somebody that owns that property. At the time, you don't know it's an heir. So let's just say you go under contract, you're bringing that contract, you're opening up escrow, title company's going to run a title report. All of a sudden, the title company says, hey, Kendall, they'll email you, say, hey, Kendall, hey, we just found out a probate is going to be required for John Smith. And then you're finding out, oh, wait a second, we got to do probate, right? So then you're finding and saying, hey, we got to get with Al about doing a probate in Lehigh Acres for this property. So the next step is getting the documentation. This is a big qualification step, right? Everybody qualifies their deals. It's no different with a probate deal. And the way you qualify it is by finding out, one, do they have the documents? Two, are they serious about working with you? Three, how many people are we talking about? Because it's usually more than just one. So where is everybody? Because you'll know if they open up and they talk about it that they're serious. Of course, I'm sure you can imagine, Kendall, I've had many consults where it starts off with one, and then it becomes seven. And oh, but I've been paying back taxes for 7 years and they want nothing to do with the property. There's a whole big picture and story when you want to get all the documents in a row up front. Once you have all that, then we're looking at the console. During the console, we're figuring out and breaking down what are we really dealing with? What county are we dealing with? What timeline are we dealing with? What price are we dealing with? Are we dealing with any potential hiccups? Is this going to be smooth sailing? Who else do we need? Maybe you miss somebody under contract. That's where it really helps because then we're figuring out what else we need to do or what you need to do on your end. Sometimes you may find out that there's 7 kids, but you only have 6 under contract. And the 6 are like, yeah, number 7, they moved to the Philippines or they moved to Taiwan. And you're just like, do we need them? And yeah, you're going to need them. So somebody's got to track that down and go get it. Maybe a skip tracer, maybe hire somebody. So there's a lot of things that consult can give real guidance to that I stress to investors. Hey, it's so important that when you get this probate deal, not only is the heir involved, but you got to be involved so everybody's on the same page. So let's just say everything works out. You got all 7 kids, and now we're ready to move forward. Now it just comes time for the lawyer to prepare all the documents, get all the documents, send all the documents out through everybody. And what's so great, Kendall, about this world, we're all virtual, right? We're all virtual. So a lot of these things can be done virtually in probate. And so we send everything out, DocuSign, notarize, whatever there is, we get it back. We file it in court. We get the documents down to the courthouse. We send the orders to the judge. And once the orders are signed, that's the golden ticket. Once we get them, that's what we're all sending to the title company. And here's the backstory of what happens with title. See, a lot of people don't know about this. Once they are given those court orders, the title company now has to re-update their title commitment because what happened? The title changed. It's not the same anymore. And what happens there? Now the title underwriter is looking for any judgments against those people that may impede the deal, any liens or things that may attach. Now that they have those, they're updating it and then they're preparing it for closing. Then they're sending deeds out for people. They're doing the mailaways. They're doing everything that's needed to close on the deal. And really, that's it. It's no different than a regular real estate deal that you find, Kendall, right? The only thing that is in the way that can be solvable is that part of probate and qualifying those heirs to see, can we get this forward? Can we move the ball forward and get this to the title company?
I love that. So, does it always have to be a lengthy process?
No. So when we're talking probate, so when I first started, and I was speaking at a lot of events. Once I figured out like how fast we can do these and I started speaking at events, I remember when I was telling people, "Hey, we can do this in a matter of 2 to 4 weeks." And people like you could see the skepticism of everybody's face at the time. Back in 2019, when I told people, "Hey, we could do a probate in Duval in 2 to 4 weeks," people were like, no way. And so once we started doing it, once we started getting in the swing of things, people started seeing it was like, yeah, sure enough, because a lot of investors used to believe that these probates take months. Yeah, maybe in certain states, right? South Carolina, because their creditor periods, I think 8 months. Some of these other states are really long. Yeah, Texas has the affidavit of heirship, but Florida doesn't. So that it may be faster there. But a lot of people that used to think that Florida had a 9 to 12 month probate length. And once we saw that it was like a matter of weeks, people are like, what? Kendall, it's anywhere between 2 weeks to 2 months, which is nothing. Do you know how many other flips and stuff people are waiting on for months and end buyers
Yeah.
are not interested in waiting that long? If you tell your end buyer that wants to do a build on it, you tell Lennar or somebody, hey, this probate's only going to take 2 months, they're going to stick with your contract versus dealing with another issue that's going to take 12 months. So it's a mind blowing how fast probate is. And I see it from title companies all the time. I get emails that they were like, wow, that was fast. That was way faster than I thought. And I'm like, yeah, I thought the same thing too. I think a probate that takes 2 months is slow. And there's investors that are like, wow, that was fast. So when you can create a system to a lot of these deals and probates, you just open up the floodgates to endless opportunities for people to get into this market.
If you're enjoying this episode of the Only Land Fans podcast, please let us know by subscribing and leaving a review. Now let's get back to the action. I love that. I love that. So doesn't have to be a deal killer, right? Probate can just be something it's just a step in the process. And that misconception of time could potentially deter other investors away from that deal, which makes it wide, clear, and open for you to take advantage of that opportunity, which is absolutely incredible. So, can you talk about what are some of the other common issues or challenges that you see that crop up in these types of probate deals? We've talked about multiple heirs, tracking those heirs down. Are there any other common issues and challenges that you see that crop up?
So definitely specifically with land. So what we've seen a few times is so everybody's ready to do the probate. Everybody's ready to get this thing done. The title company is like, hey, what's the update on probate? Meanwhile, there's all these other ancillary issues that are coming up. Wetland issues, landlocked issues, environmental issues, endangered species. The bird can't be moved. There needs to be a bird test. There needs to be a this test. One lot is good. The next one has the alligator. You can't. There's all these other things. And so we've run into it. It's happened. And I've definitely learned a lot about this on the probate side, which is it's not always about the probate. You got to do your due diligence with everything else. Making sure you're running it by the city for any issues, maybe easements that come up, or I'm thinking of anything that can happen with the conjoining properties. There's so many of these issues that pop up, and we've done probates before where all of a sudden I had this case, Kendall, where I know where I was. I was in the parking lot at the Hero event back in 22. And I remember I was talking to this lady and she said, oh, we got to do this probate. There's 7 kids, 4 probates. And Al at the time was like, oh, yeah, we're going to do it like right away. So we filed everything like immediately. Next day, I get a phone call and they say, we got to stop the probate after I filed everything. And I was like, what do you mean? They said, we found a corner of that property was zoned wetland and it's not buildable. So no builder's going to come in and it was going to be a $75,000 job just to fix that issue and kills the whole deal. Make sure you're always doing your due diligence, checking and verifying and doing your tests and getting those things in order before completely jumping in and getting the experts involved.
Listen up, land fans. This is huge. We're bringing you the one and only Pace Morby, star of A&E's Triple Digit Flip and the mastermind behind $450 million in real estate deals. He's coming to our virtual meetup on Thursday, December 5th to share how he's applying his creative financing genius to land deals. Head to olfmeetup.com to save your spot today. That's olfmeetup.com. This is the kind of opportunity that changes everything. Yeah, that's really good advice. Make sure that due diligence is done before we go to attorneys. So, one of the questions that I do have in terms of probate and expectations that we can have when dealing with probate, you did a fantastic job of laying out the timeline. Can you talk to us about what kind of costs are associated when we're looking at factoring those in for different types of probate deals when we are doing our due diligence?
Definitely, that is where the consultation is going to be really good because during that consult, we're figuring out what the fees are. We'll break it down. In the lawyer world, there's two different things. There's attorney's fees for all the work and the time and the knowledge and the services that we're doing. And then there's the costs. The fee is going to definitely depend on the complexity. Are we dealing with multiple probates, two, three, four probates? Are we dealing with one? Are we dealing with 8 to 10 heirs? Are we dealing with two heirs? So anytime we're trying to factor in what that price is, I always come up with it during the consult because it's just so case specific. We're always factoring that in, right? We talk about it, transparent all the time. Then there's costs. Costs are filing fees, right? Shipping, overhead, sending in original documentation, maybe doing formal notice because we have to do some kind of formal notice to an heir, any type of certified mail, any type of overhead. Another thing, talk about a cost. Another interesting thing that happens with a lot of these land deals and probate is these people lived in another state, so they lived in New Jersey, they lived in Ohio, they lived in Michigan, and the probate's already done. And they had a will and they had a whole administration. And then we're on the console, we're finding out, like, after we're digging a little bit, we're finding out they already went through all this and all the documents are in another state. So that's another added cost of what does that look like? How much is it to order there? Because sometimes getting these documents costs $50. Remember one time in Massachusetts, we wanted exemplified copies. I think it was Massachusetts, and it was like $1,000. And I was like, whoa, this is a land deal. I was like, can we do just certified? They're like, oh yeah, certified's $25. I'm like,
Sign me up.
we're gonna take that. But it's these little things add up in costs. And so we take the two of those, we combine them, and then we're figuring it out. And yeah, I know for sure. I'm very mindful anytime it's a land deal, I know how tight it is. So we're always trying to really get that flat fee right number because if I tell you, Kendall, it's three probates, it's going to be 10 grand. And you're just like, dead deal, right?
Yeah.
Or you're like, perfect, let's go. I'm gonna make $60,000 on this deal. Let's rock and roll. It comes down to just talking it out, figuring it out, and don't guess, right? Like you don't want to guess on what this is. Don't assume, and you don't want to tell the seller, "Hey, I think it's gonna be $1,000 for probate." You don't want to go down that road. You want to make sure you get with the professional, you get with someone that actually knows this and does this day in and day out and will make it happen. And by the way, Kendall, just so you know, what has been really cool about the model that I do with probate in Florida is the fact that I wait for the fees at the end. So
Ah,
I'm waiting until closing to get paid. And that helps a lot of investors. It helps the heirs because if I told you it's going to be 10,000, you're like, I don't have that up front. And so all of a sudden I'm like, hey, we're waiting for that at closing. You're like, good, done. And I just hope a lot of investors listening to OnlyLandFans that are in other states go find the lawyer that's going to be creative and going to think like not just a probate lawyer, like a title side of it, like the title company, and be able to get their payment at closing. Because then you really found somebody that can help work through your deals. And that's really what you need to automate your business.
love that. Love that so much. So, as I'm listening to this and thinking through different scenarios that could potentially happen, you brought up what happens if there's 8 or 9 heirs. I would imagine that very frequently, not everyone agrees. What happens if there's one or two heirs out of a potential 8 or 9? that are causing problems and they say, I'm not ever going to go along with it. It's not a money thing. Maybe it's just a family dynamics thing. And how do you work through those types of issues?
So it all comes down to what the spread is. It really does. It comes down to what the money spread is. So, for example, let's just say you had a deal where you were snatching it up for 20,000. You were going to wholesale it out for 100,000. And nice 2 acre lot. There's 7 heirs. You got six under contract. And we're talking to the six, and they're like, yeah, number seven went rogue. Just no idea. What gets interesting with land, and especially with Florida because of the characteristic of it, there could be strategies to petition where we can get the contract approved and get around that heir. It would take longer, obviously not the usual time period where everybody's holding hands and doing it. Go longer, it's going to be definitely way more expensive. And that heir eventually would get their money we deposit the money in the court registry. So they're going to get their share. But there has to be due diligence behind any type of deal like that. Sure, it's possible, but it all comes down to the numbers. Unfortunately, with a lot of the land deals, the numbers are too tight. So people have run that by me before. The same scenario, they're buying it for 5,000, but they're assigning it out for 20. I don't see enough room in that deal. I'm looking for a really large spread, and there's a lot of criteria I look for. I look for participation, the family's all on board, really the due diligence process is possible. We're not having a buyer just breathing down everybody's throat about, hey, we got to get this done. We got to get this done. It's very possible to do it when you have a lot of the right situations in place, but it's just numbers, Kendall. Always is coming down to the money.
Yeah, so good. So good. So you've given us a really good overview of how probate works and how to start utilizing this in our businesses. Can you talk a little bit more about maybe there's some advanced techniques in dealing with probates that could really give us the edge over people that aren't dealing with probates?
Advanced techniques. So I would say one of the trickier parts of probate is when you find a deal, but then you have a couple heirs you can't find. Let's say you get on the phone with the seller. They said there were four kids ever. Um, One you're talking to is alive. The other three she hasn't been in touch with for 10 to 20 years. A lot of people will pass that off. And so what happens is that now that pool just became even more or less competition because
Yeah.
nobody wants to touch that. And so the advanced strategy is getting with people that are really good with skip tracing, tracking people down, tracking heirs down. That's the key is getting with those specialists that do it. One person I absolutely love that does this is Stephanie Shepard. She gets into a lot of the nitty gritty with finding people. She'll find a lot of people. We've seen deals where she was able to track someone down in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So yeah, it was a crazy deal. Everybody couldn't find this one kid. And everybody was like, what do we do? And sure enough, 6 months later, finds them after doing a lot of Facebook outreach. So you got to get with people that know how to do it and leverage them, whether it's private investigators, genealogists, or people that know other people that do this and track people down or will search for people for a living to, do this. That's the advanced strategy is when you start getting into that, you've really niched down and now what you're doing is when you go to a networking event. So let's just say you go to the OnlyLandFans meetup and Kendall's been through this, right? He's been through finding heirs and stuff like that. All right. And let's just say Brad is like, hey, I found this deal. I don't know where these heirs are. And when he's talking out loud, Kendall's perfect. This is the perfect time for a great JV, a great agreement. So we can do something here. So you never know where that elevated knowledge and leveraging experts will help get you. in terms of finding people, getting in touch with anybody. It's great.
So good. So good. So, what would you consider to be your superpower?
Man, marketing is definitely a superpower for me. Um, I really, there's days I sit around and I really think through like relationship marketing strategies. I love connecting with people. I'm a people person. I don't know. It's just, there's so many different things that I've seen that really works with personality and getting in, really connecting with people. But I gotta say, marketing is definitely my jam.
So good. And it's very apparent. It's not a surprise that you said marketing because your content is absolutely fantastic. So we can definitely see that. What would you consider to be your definition of success?
Man, it's a great question. Very subjective. I think the only person that can measure how far you've come is you. And I think that takes a lot of reflecting. I think a lot of us are always trying to seek all these things, and we see all these things online and see all these people doing all these things. But really, it's about yourself. And then you're looking back and seeing how far you have come over that period of time. And for me, I do it all the time. I'm always mind blown, Kendall, when I look back from a year from now, and I'm like, it's amazing how much things change in just 1 year. So when you're able to take all that and package it, and you're just so grateful for where you are today, that really is just success to me, is being just so grateful for being in that moment where you've come from so many steps from before and just feeling like you're in an amazing place.
I love that. Seeing that growth and tracking that growth, I think is so important. I think as entrepreneurs, it's really easy to get caught up in the goal and not look at all of the wins that we've had along the way. And so I just think that's beautiful. That whole idea of tracking your growth and appreciating that growth because like you did that, right? I love that. So are there any authors or entrepreneurs that you like to follow? Who are some of your favorite thought leaders that you like to follow?
A great question. I had this actually ready for you. So, one thing that I've really been thinking about lately, especially in the law firm, is I've grown out my team, right? I've grown out. I started with one employee and now I have 9 team members, right? And it's grown. And so when that happens, a lot of the responsibilities, a lot of the things change. And one guy that I saw at Family Mastermind was Trevor Mock. And Trevor is brilliant when it comes to building out your systems and growing your business. And he was just on my show talking about how to get more energy and really find more time for things. And when I did that show, some people dropped some comments on books on what to read. And so one book that I'm just jumping in on is Buying Back Your Time, because
Yes.
this is one book that I'm so excited to be diving in because I need this right now. It's hard for me to find a really good book. I like books that provide context to situations I'm going through. I feel like those are the most applicable for me. And so this is going to help figure out, what should I be getting off my plate? How can I find the right people to get this off? What should the tasks be there? I want more time to be able to go away or go on a trip or something. I don't want to have to be in the office on top of people. For those that are listening and watching, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. That'll be a good book. But man, there's people on social media. There's so many different people. There's so many people in the mastermind too that are amazing. And I got to tell you, when you find that one person or two people, just really fine tune what they've been going through and work on it.
So good. And yes, Dan Martell is absolutely amazing. I can't wait till you get through the book so we can talk about it. It's one of my absolute favorites. Oh my gosh, yeah. I can geek out about Buy Back Your Time like for another hour. So we won't go down that rabbit hole, but so, so good. What do you consider to be one of the biggest surprises you've had so far on your journey, just in the real estate space as an entrepreneur?
In the real estate space, I think what's been eye-opening is the amount of people that are always suggesting to buy real estate and hold, buy more real estate. A lot of people that I talk to, they're that one advice are like, just buy more real estate. They wish they had bought more real estate 10, 20 years ago, right? In the entrepreneur world, I think what's been the most surprising is really finding my way as a leader and a boss. We are all naturally gifted in certain things. And then all the other things, we're always working and becoming better versions of ourselves because we are not natural in those roles, right? And I think what's been surprising is really seeing what the gaps are and working on them, because then that means you become the better leader. Then your team reacts to that. And then your team wants to be inspired. When you start growing a company and you're getting team members and building that team, you really need to take a step back and see, yeah, you have the strengths, but what are the weaknesses? And be able to take the time to work through those so your team knows, hey, this is what we got to do. And then eventually you hire for that role, right? You delegate out to that role. But it's been surprising seeing the business roll in. It's been surprising seeing the marketing work, right? It always excites me when, wow, that strategy worked, that move worked. So you enjoy the ride as an entrepreneur. Every day is a new day with different things that are going to pop up. It's just, how are you going to tackle it?
So good. What is your biggest passion or goal you'd like to achieve at this point in your life?
Biggest passion or goal? Oh man, Kendall's hitting me with the good ones today. It's probably not something I really thought about too much because right now, at this point, it has been growing the law firm in terms of a vision for a year. So what I've done this year, Kendall, is I mapped out all the things that didn't work last year and I mapped out the things that did work. And so the things that did work, because it's easy to get lost in the chaos, right? It's easy to get lost in the sauce. So what I did was I mapped out the vision for this year. And I know I mapped it out because I know that's what works for growth for me. And I've stuck with that. So my goals in terms of the law firm side of it is to maintain the consistency on that vision. Because when you can maintain that, the success is endless. You're going to go in the right direction. And in terms of me personally, I'm always working on myself, my health, always. I think without your health, you can't perform at the high level that a lot of entrepreneurs seek. And a lot of entrepreneurs seek to be at the high volume level. And be at high volume means you need to be at high volume, means you need to be at high performance. So all of this is sounds great, but you have to take care of your health. And I think that is always a goal for me is be better, do better, work with my team and be the better boss.
Yeah, I love that. It definitely is a whole self-development, like from inside out. Like just growing a business, there's so much like self-work that has to happen in order for you to get to that next level, right? Like you have to level up as a person in order for you to reach that next level in your business. I love that. I love that. You mentioned earlier that marketing is a big superpower of yours. You love connecting, you love that relationship marketing. What types of resources would you suggest for people in that same vein that are more interested in learning more about connecting and relationship building and that type of thing? Are there any resources, books, podcasts, or anything like that that you absolutely love when it comes to that particular topic?
Kendall, it's crazy. I have to say, number one, you got to go out and network. So I know how easy it is to sit and work all day, but really stepping outside of your comfort zone and going and being a part of a RIA or going and being a part of a mastermind, being a part of groups that are totally different than you is where you grow, where you're going to be the most uncomfortable is where the growth happens. So I think in terms of learning the marketing is going and finding what other people are doing and talking to them. I think it's also not missing the easy strategies, right? Not missing the easy relationship strategies, maybe meeting one-on-one with people or hosting some kind of dinner or event. A lot of those are big as well. In terms of relationship building, once you're going to find your tribe. And this is something I've really had to think deeply about is find those alliances. When you find the alliances, you really hold on to those and you go deeper with those, and you'll start seeing where people collaborate and they'll talk about what's working for them, and you'll talk about what's working for you and what's not working for you. And there's so much bounce back off that. And you just learn from there. And I think that's been a big thing that I've learned over the years of being an entrepreneur and business owner.
Yeah, oh, that's so good. I think that there's a common kind of feeling that we all want to be like all things to everyone, but the fact that are leaning in to finding your tribe and really investing in those types of relationships, I think is really fantastic advice. I think that there's some special magical things that happen whenever you do find your tribe and you lean into those relationships for sure. So thank you for sharing that with
Yeah,
us.
absolutely.
I want to thank you so much, Al, for joining us today. You've given us so much value. How can we give back to you right now? Like, what connections or resources you're looking for currently that we can help you with?
Always, first of all, really appreciate the opportunity for this because this has been awesome, right? When we get to come together and really help provide things back to people, it's so rewarding, and I'm grateful that I get to do this. I'm always looking for Florida investors that are doing deals here, that are finding the messy stuff like the probates. I'm always looking for that, and or maybe they have a really good title company they are working with, because title companies are another great resource for me. And it's just really the connections. The market in Florida is getting hot. I think what's happening is a lot of people are realizing there's a lot of opportunity, and they're finding things in other parts of the state, and they're really working in Texas. They're working in California. So they're virtual. Whether they're in Florida or out, that's what I'm looking for. And just the connections, man. That's what it's all about.
I love it. So, if someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way that they can go about doing that?
Yeah, best way really is social media. Find me on Instagram at Attorney Nicoletti, Facebook under Al Nicoletti. I have a YouTube channel. You definitely want to check that out because I have all my videos that I talk about with probates and partitions and quiet titles. I have all those types of videos that are out there. And also, you can find me at online, www.alnicoletti.com. My number's 904-999-0053. You'll find all my stuff that's there. And definitely one other thing that you can check out is the Al Nicoletti show. We had Kendall on the premiere for season 4. It was crazy. It was so fun. I had so much fun doing that with you, Kendall. I was like so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, we got to have him on. And check out the show because we bring on so many different people that talk about all these different things in real estate, adjacent to real estate. So you can find me there live every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. You'll see me, and we're there.
Love it. Love it. We'll put all of Al's contact information in the show notes and in the description. So definitely check that out. Thank you guys so much for joining us, Al. This has been an absolute pleasure. So much great information. I can't wait to dig into some probates. I'm going to put that on my list to now start targeting. So thank you so much. I hope that everyone got as much value as I did. Al, you are an absolute gem. Thank you for joining us. It's been fun, everyone. Take care. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. If you're interested in hearing from other seven-figure land flippers about how they've started and run their businesses, then join us at OnlyLandFans.com. Looking forward to seeing you there.